So hello everyone, good morning, afternoon, or evening from whatever time zone you may be joining us in from today. My name is Rebecca Cronin, and I'm one of the customer success managers here with the Altair Data Analytics team. Now, some of you might recognize my voice from either participating in our complimentary onboarding sessions or perhaps seen my name within the user community. The customer success team, again, we're here as another point of contact into Altair if you're not able to get a hold of your account manager or for any questions you may have in regards to the solutions that you currently have or seeking to learn more. If you're not able to connect to our user community, please, you could reach out to us at kw-csm@altair.com and let us know how we can assist you. So some little housekeeping. On your control panel, you should see a handout section. It's a copy of today's PowerPoint that we have attached, as well as a quick reference template sheet that will help you in describing the various templates that we're going to be talking about today, the detail, append, footer, etc. You should also see a questions panel. In there, you have the opportunity to submit your question. It does not have to be about our topic that we're starting with today. It could be anything in relations to Monarch, any of the functionality capabilities within the client, as well as anything around Monarch server, or some of you may know it as Automator. So please feel free to go ahead and to be able to submit any kind of question that you may have during the whole process. We'll take a look at it and we'll do our best to get to it during the session live. And if we don't, we'll follow up after. So I'd like to introduce you our specialist today, our expert, Chris Porthouse. Now, some of you may have had the pleasure of being able to work with him on some of your professional service engagements, or perhaps you may have seen him respond to some of the questions you submitted within the user community. He's been with the technical field for over 20 years. He's just a great colleague to work with, helping us out, as well as for anyone that has interacted with him. So at this point, I'm no further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and hand it over to Chris, make him presenter. So let me find you, Chris, and we'll make you presenter. By the way, we are recording this. All our past webinar sessions, you may find them within the user community, within the knowledge base, webinars and presentation section. Some of our older ones will be in the Monarch forum. I'm sorry, Chris, you can go ahead and share your screen.
No, thank you. I'm just having an issue trying to choose this. I'm not sure which screen you're seeing.
So I'm seeing the Altair Monarch Classic.
Okay. Hang on a second. I'm trying to figure out how to change the screen I'm looking at. There we go.
And now I see DPS.
Data. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So today, as voted on last time, it was just a general overview of the different template types that we have within Monarch. So the nice thing is this applies to both Monarch Classic as well as Data Prep Studio. So I just happen to have Data Prep Studio open, so I'm just going to work with that. But anything I show you here also applies to Monarch Classic. I'm just going to bring in one of our classic shipping report files, since it's pretty helpful for just about all the template types we have here. And just as a quick overview, when basically you're going to use these templates to extract all your fields from a text report. So this could be a PDF or just plain text file. Normally you wouldn't use this for CSV files, Excel files, anything like that, where the data is already in rows and columns. The one exception to that is for special Excel files where it's not necessarily rows and columns per se, is it's kind of laid out slightly differently. We do have a report Excel worksheet design mode as well. And the template theory behind that kind of follows what we have with the report design here. So having said that, there are 7 different types of templates that we have. However, only you have to count 4 of them actually extract the data from our reports. So if you did look at that reference sheet, I have it up here somewhere. Like I said, this reference sheet that Rebecca mentioned early on is a good refresher if you ever have questions on what the different types do. But I will go in a little bit more detail for all these. But this gives you a nice visual representation of where to expect or where you would find the data, how it's laid out within your report. So generally speaking, anytime you're going to start with a text report and you have to extract your data fields into rows and columns, you're almost always going to start with what we call our detail template. And anytime with detail template, that's what's going to generate all the rows for your data. So if you start with an append or footer template, the page headers, those all create columns to add to the rows, so add supplemental data to the rows. However, it won't create any new rows. So just keep in mind when you are doing this, if you want to get any kind of great information out of your text reports, you're always going to start with the detailed template because that's what's going to give you your row data from the report. So we'll start with the detail. And again, the detail template is just used for extracting information from the lowest level of the report. So usually we're talking about transaction or line items for a report. So in this case, we're looking at a shipping report. We have a lot of information in here, such as like some information up here, like the run report, date and time, the name of the report. We have a customer name, their address, their account information, their number and who to contact. We have order number and ship date. And then we also have the individual pieces of media that were shipped to the customer. So when I'm looking at this report, and I'm trying to generate my rows of data, I'm going to look at what changes the most on a single page for the most part. What's my line item that I'm looking to generate my rows? In this case, it would be the media, what we actually ship out. So all this information right here. All right. So that I'm looking at that would be our detail template, and that's what's going to generate all of our rows. So I'm actually, in this case, I'm just going to choose a single line of data to select for that detail template. So again, anytime you're creating a template, there's always 4 steps to it. The first step is to identify the line or lines that you want to capture. Now in this case, there are several lines I want to capture, but each line, so I could capture 3 lines at once. However, out of these 3 lines, they're all individual lines, but they do follow a similar pattern for the most part. So in this case, I just want to choose a single line for my detail template. Step 2 is just choose the template type, which is what we're talking about now. With Classic, you have to come up to the top and select the template type, but for data prep, we can either use the plus sign up here on the upper left, or what I like to do is just right click, that brings up this wizard, and just create template, and you'll notice right at the very top is detail. So I'm going to select detail. When that happens, just whatever line or lines you had copied down here in step 1, get copied up here into our sample text window, this little one, in this case, a single line with a yellow background. This text window is also our field definition window, and we'll say that for step 4. But step 3 of this 4-step process is just to define a trap. We're not going to go into a lot of detail for defining the traps because it's more of an overview of the different template types. But in this case, when we're talking about traps, we're just talking about patterns that you can use to identify the lines of data that you'd like to capture. In this case, it's a single line. And for this example, I tend to use just the single decimal place over the dollar amount up here in the trap window. And when I do that, if you look down here at our line selection window, let me just turn that off here real quick. You'll see these little 2 greater than symbols right here that basically telling me which lines are matching the trap that I put up here. So with this, when I don't have a trap up here, you'll notice that every single line is being identified by Monarch as matching our trap because our trap has nothing up here. So as soon as I start typing, I'll put the decimal in. Now it just identifies the the report, or each line in the report that matches which lines of my report have a decimal in this particular column. Now, again, we're using a standard trap, so it's only going to look at, in this case, this one particular column, and if it has a decimal in it, it's going to highlight or identify that line as matching our trap. So we can kind of see these three lines, this line, this line. Yeah, I can scroll through the report and see exactly which lines are matching. From past experience, I know these are the lines I really want to capture. At that point, I'm capturing everything I want to. I'm identifying all the lines I want to capture my data from. So now I just go to step 4, which is to identify the fields or the data I want to pull out or extract from my report. In this case, it's usually the media type, the quantity, the description of it, the label information, the unit price, and the total amount for that. And as you can see, as I do that, again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. It's just I quickly select all my fields, but you can kind of see in the report, based off of where my trap matches. So each point that Monarch identifies, that decimal matching that column, will identify the lines that these fields I just created are going to actually highlight. And so you can see as I started drawing my fields, it drew like these yellow shaded boxes around each of the different items. So my media type, the quantity, the description, the label number, unit price, and amount. So any lines that didn't have this identifying mark here in the line selection window here, notice there's no boxes being highlighted. So that's what the detail template will do for you. It basically starts creating our rows. So you can see in our data preview down here, we now have a bunch of rows listed here. And that's pretty much it for this. However, there's a lot more information we want to capture from this report as well. So we'll kind of just like move on to the next template types that we have available to us. Now, again, details add rows. The rest of our details are going to add columns to these rows. So let me just hit accept real quick. You can see in our prepare window, we have 149 rows created here. With this single report, I'm not going to have I will not have any more than 149 rows based off my detail, based off that trap I created for that detail template. So all the other detail templates I'm going to, all the other templates I'm going to add will not add any more than 149 rows. We'll just start adding columns to that data. Let me go back into report design. Right. And then if we look at the reference sheet that was provided, you can kind of see that anytime you see this yellow shading, that'll identify, if you don't change the default coloring scheme, will always identify a detail template. Now, if we look at our other, there's a couple other types here, this append. Append and footer are very similar. It's just where they are positioned in relation to our data. So anything above our detail rows will be an append. So if you want to, will be an append, and anything below the detail rows will be a group footer. Now the sample report I'm using doesn't have any footers, but the behavior is very similar in how it reacts. So I'm gonna look at the append first, and then we'll talk about footers here in a second. But if the data you want to attach to our detail rows here that are being highlighted is above, if the data you need to attach to the rows are above where the detail lines occur, it will be in an append template. So an append template can either, it kind of deals with sorting levels, but it deals with anything that's on or above a detail line. So that's kind of the one thing that's missing in that reference sheet. We can actually have an append on the same line as a detail, but the group footer will always be below, can never include the detail line. But in this case, if we look at our order number or even our contact person, account number, anything like this, all this data up here that we want to add as more data that we want to capture, we want this information to be attached to these lines of data here. So because this information is above the detail, we're going to create an append template. Now, this is not the case, but assuming if this order number right here, this 536039, really applied to the line items above it, in that case, this would be a group footer or a footer template. And I can show you that here in a second. But so in this case, I want to capture the let's say we'll capture the order number. Now, because this order number 536017 applies to these 4 lines of data below it, it's going to be an append template. So again, same 4 steps. Identify the line, which actually contains the word order number on it. I'm going to identify the template type, which in this case, now again, you'll notice in my list here, I do no longer have a detail template option available to me. And that's important because you can only have one detail template per model or works load plan. So no detail is no longer available to me, so I can only choose from these 6 options that are left. So in this case, I'm going to use the append because it's above the data. Group footer is out because it's not below. Page header we'll talk about here shortly. And then we'll talk about these other 3, which are very unique afterwards. But because this order number is above my detail, I'm going to select the append template. And again, because I had this order line highlighted, it gets copied up here into my sample text window. Now I'm just going to create a quick trap. Again, I'm sticking with the standard trap because it is the fastest. And in this case, it's actually the easiest one because it's actually looking for these letters up here in each individual column here to actually identify the line. So you can see in my line selection window, anytime I see those 2 greater than symbols, it identifies the line of having the letters O, R, D, E, R all the way down to number in those columns in that order. So we can kind of see that. Wherever I see that, it matches, and it's pretty much what I expect to see. So now I just go to step 4, identify my fields. Again, same thing. Wherever I see this line selection symbol here, it'll draw a box around the fields that it sees. So order numbers highlighted, ship dates highlighted. Now, if I look in my data preview, you'll notice, so for this order number, 536017, is being applied to these 4 lines right here. All right. Same thing with the ship date. Now, the way the append template will work, notice when I come out here, I'll show you we still have the same 149 lines here, but notice we added 2 new columns. Again, I probably should just rename this one real quick so it's more obvious. Ship date and order number. All right. So the same 4 lines. So this order number, 536017, will always get attached to all the detail. It's going to attach to all the detail lines below it. And it'll do so until it meets certain criteria. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of detail below it. And again, we can see in our data preview that actually attached to the four lines below it. Same thing with the ship date. Now, with append templates and footer templates, it's always going to attach to the detail records that for appends below it and for the footers above it. But it's always going to keep attaching until a couple of scenarios. One, well, it hits the end of the file, so at which point there's no more data to attach to, so it will stop. The other being that if it comes across another copy of itself, and when I say of itself, it's coming, in this case, like this append. I'm going to rename this, see my order information. So I created an append template called order info. So it's going to attach, this order info template is going to attach to all the detail records below it until it comes across another copy of the order info template. So in this case, 536017 attaches to 4 lines, and it'll keep attaching to all the lines below it until it comes across another order info template. Now here, it was only 4 lines before it came across this order number, 536039. And we can see in our detailed, or our data preview down here, exactly what we see up here is that we came across another order info template. So it changed these values for order number and ship date to use these values, 536039 and 42108. And we see the same thing in our data preview. So it keeps working its way down. Now, anyone that's familiar with our sample shipping reports know that this one actually has a return authorization in here. And I cannot remember which page it's on, but it's not that far down, right here. So you'll notice we have this order number, 536012. If I scroll down a little bit, our data preview here. If we look at our data preview, you'll see that it attaches to 9 line items basically. So 536012 gets attached to everything up here, but you'll also notice down here, these bits right here. Oh, that's what the problem is. These bits right here also have the same order number 536012. However, these 3 lines correspond to these 3 lines right here. All right, so these 3 lines really do not have an order number. They're actually returned under this RA number, RA6021. And that's what you have to watch out for when you're dealing with append and footer templates. It's behaving exactly the way it expects to be behave. Just keep attaching to all the detail lines below it. So in this case, here's a detail line, all these detail lines below this 536012. So this order number gets attached to them. And again, it's going to keep attaching until it either runs out of data attached to, or it comes across another order info template, or the third option here, which I'll explain in 1 second, a clearing template. Now in this case, this line right here, this return authorization, did not match our trap pattern of order number, because it actually says return authorization. So it didn't come across another order info template, so it kept attaching to these 3 records right here, which explains why we see this. It might say it attached incorrectly, but in this case, it attached exactly the way we would expect it to, just because it didn't know to stop once it hit return authorization. Again, we can control that with a clearing template. I know we've covered it in the past. If we have time, I can come back and talk about it, but that's the third way of stopping the default behavior of an append or footer template. So either the end of the report, so if we're talking about appends, it's going to keep attaching to all the detail rows below it until either A, runs out of data attached to, B, it comes across another copy of itself, so in this case, an order info template, or we tell it to stop by using a clearing template. Now, the only reason, the difference in the behavior for the group footer is instead of attaching going down, it's going to attach going up. And in this case, it'll keep attaching going up until it hits the top of the file. Right? I'll show that behavior here in 1 second. But for now, I'm going to hit accept. And you'll notice in our prepare window, we still have the same 149 rows of data. And again, with appends or footer templates, they're just going to add columns to existing rows. So again, we're never going to have more than 149 rows the way I laid this out so far. We're just going to keep adding columns to our table here. Right? Go back into design here. And now again, maybe I made a mistake, and really the order number should attach going up, just so I can show you how the group footer behaves. So I'm going to change, instead of calling this an append template, I'm going to change this to be a group footer template. Now notice the color also changes. Instead of that orangey color, it changes to a pink color. Again, another visual indication that this is a different template type. In this case, group footers are identified by this pink, like light pink color. And if we look in our data preview, you'll notice that our first 4 lines that originally used to belong to 536017. If we look in our data preview, we now see that it belongs to 536039. Again, we know this is incorrect just because of the way the report's laid out, but just so you can see the default behavior of the group footers. So this one right here, it did identify as an order number, but you'll notice we don't see 536017 in our data preview. And that's because it's only going to attach the detail rows above this order info template. Now, in our case, there are no detail records up here above 536017, so it had nothing to attach to. So it just kind of gets discarded by Monarch as not really being pertinent to anything. It's just, so I have nothing to attach. There's no detail records above me, so I'm just going to throw that out. But 536039, again, we see it attaches to these 4 records, and it'll keep attaching to all the detail records above it until it's, in this case, the top of the file where there are no more detail lines, which is why we only have the 4 here. And the same thing, if I scroll down to the return authorization, 536034, basically it starts attaching to this return here, this Lambert. We see that here, and it's going to keep attaching all the way up through Vivaldi here. Keep going until it comes across 536012, which point it says I came across another copy of myself. So I'm going to stop attaching this value. I'm going to use these new values up here. All right. Now, the important thing to note with the footer and append templates, and this is more of an issue back in Classic. I don't believe we really enforce it anymore, but it's still referenced out there. Although we can only have one detail template, you could have multiple append and footer templates. There used to be a limit. I believe it used to be you couldn't exceed 20 footer and append templates. I don't believe we really enforced the limit on either side currently, but there is that. As soon as you look at the help file, there will be a reference to it saying do not exceed 20 footer or append templates in total. So just be aware of that limitation. But for now, I'm just going to change this back to an append, and just so you can see, even though I have one detail, and right now I only have one append, I'm going to just create another quick append just so to show you that. In this case, I'm going to do a multi-line trap, multi-line sample anyway. Step 2, you'll notice I still have the append and group footer templates available to me. So again, with detail, you can only have one. With appends and footers, you can have multiple. So there's no problem. You can mix and match however you want to do it. So I'm just going to create another quick append, match on account. Now I can just kind of go out and grab account number and contact name. Again, I have 2 new columns. I hit accept. You'll see I still have the same 149 rows, and I have 2 new columns. So again, once you create your detailed template, that's going to be the total number of rows you're going to get with this one report. Now, if we bring in another report, we'll add more rows to the data, but just keep in mind, adding multiple templates doesn't increase the row count. Only a detail template can do that for you. Right? So some of the other template types you should mention. We mentioned the detail, the append and the footer. The other one that we have left available to us that will actually add column information to the detail rows is our page header template. Page headers are great. They actually have some strange behavior. I won't say strange. I won't say it's one I don't recall ever seeing in the documentation. But page headers kind of work similar to append template. So it's always going to attach to the records, detail records below it. So in this case, if you have a text file that doesn't have any page breaks built into it, like a carriage return or a form feed character in there, and say it's a straight mainframe report, just spits out lines of data, like a million rows, but no page headers or no page breaks, you can use the page header to actually put a virtual page break in your document if you needed one. In this case, we actually have it, and you can kind of see that we, well, I won't say you can see it, but if you see this little dotted line here between tape and page 2, that's showing a page break. Now, in this case, this report actually does have page breaks, but that's not the only reason you'd actually see this dotted line. There are default settings, and I want to say it's 100 by default. 100 lines, if the report does not have a page break in there, every 100 lines, it's going to throw a page break in there just to help Monarch deal with paginating the report. But in this case, we actually do have it, but I'm just going to throw the page header in here anyway, just to show that we can actually collect this stuff. Now, what's nice is, real quickly, like you'll see like our account number, the information we picked up here, even though there's an append template in between there. So like for 11887, you'll see we have multiple details to keep attaching to, and we do see that in our data preview down here. Even though there is another append template between our contact information and our order information, it doesn't care about that, right? It's only looking for another copy of itself. In this case, if I call this contact info, let's keep it straight. it's going to attach these two fields to all the detail rows below it, regardless of what it says here for order number. And we see that in the data preview as well. So the order number here changes. We have two orders and two ship dates, but the same account number and same contact person. Right? And again, it behaves just exactly like the in a pen template you'd expect it. It'll just keep attaching to all the detail records until it hits the end of the file, another copy of itself, or a clearing template. Specifically defined clearing template for that template. But in this case, for a page header, I'm going to select these first three lines up here at the top, and I'm going to select page header. Now, page header is just like a detail template in the fact that if you go to create another one, you'll notice you can only have one page header for your entire report. So keep that in mind. Detail and page header, once you use it, it's only good for this one single model or load plan. And so it's not available to me to select anymore. So the only ones you can really multiple select are the append, the group footer, and the exclusion here, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I have my page header template. I'm just basically going to define it off the, say, in this case, I'll look for a number, slash, should be good enough. And I can see wherever the window, I see those three lines. When it sees the date, it's identifying it. So I could always capture the report date, when it was run, maybe the from and to date if I needed it for whatever reason. I could capture the page number, but we can actually use some metadata information to capture that. But if I wanted to, I could always, capture that as well. Right. Now, the other nice little hidden feature of the page header, which is not really documented that well, is if you have a template that kind of spans multiple pages, like it will span I won't say multiple pages, but spans a page break. You can actually use this page header to kind of make that page break invisible. So if you're using a detail or pen template or a footer template that is using like a multi-line trap, or using an advanced property to say that end field on a blank field value, the page header actually makes these lines in the page break invisible to those templates. So if you have data that spans multiple pages or will span a page break, it kind of makes, in this case, it would make these three lines invisible to the, like say, for instance, this tape line, you had started here and then continued on this line. This one doesn't, but say it did continue this line, because I defined this page header here, I could actually span that page break and say that this detail that you don't see here actually belongs to the detail up here. So it's very helpful, especially if you are using the advanced properties to say end on blank field value for a field, that if you have a page header in there, it actually makes the page break and whatever lines are being captured by the page header invisible, so they won't get captured by that blank field value logic. All right. Okay. So the other three, so I kind of talked about the four templates so far: the detail, the append, the group footer, and the page header. At least three other template types that are fairly recent. I want to say from version 12 or 13 when these came in. The first one being the exclusion template, which could be great. In the past, what people have had to do, especially with Classic, and you've tried your best at trying to make these patterns to pare down what you're trying to capture for a template. Sometimes you can't just, I'll look at the detail here for a second. Like say I didn't use this decimal for the trap, and instead I just used a, like, let's say I said an alpha character here to show like the media type, or actually that's going to be a bad example, but I'll say a non-blank here for the number. Instead of using a number, I used a non-blank. And you can kind of see what happens is if I just went for the quantity, maybe if I just put one here as well, and even down here at the end, right? You'll notice I'm still kind of capturing stuff. Like I'm capturing the lines I want to see, but I'm also capturing, like in this case, the column headers, the media line, everything. And I don't want to capture that. In the past, I mean, I could definitely get rid of this by building a better trap. But if for some reason I couldn't get around that, I couldn't come up with a trap that kind of got rid of these lines up here, like I was just stuck capturing the header for each time I went for my detail. In the past, what you'd end up doing is just creating a filter to say that, if I see like the letters MEDI in this column, filter that out. And it's just extra work that you'd have to do to get rid of these lines here. Again, this could easily be alleviated by building a better trap, but saying I didn't know any better or I couldn't, whatever, through my best efforts, I just couldn't get rid of this header line. Well, we introduced this concept of an exclusion template. And so you can't capture any fields from it, but instead of using filters, you can actually say, do not capture, if I match this trap, do not capture this line regardless of what's there. So in this case, I could say, it works on the same first three steps of our 4-step template process. But I want to identify the line I do not want. In this case, it's going to be the header line. So I'm going to highlight this header line here. Come step 2, select my template type. It's going to be an exclusion. And then again, real quickly, you'll notice I can have multiple exclusions. I'm not being prevented from adding anymore. But now you actually have to add a trap for this because the default behavior for the other traps, if you don't put any trap character in there, is to identify all the lines. The exclusion template is just kind of opposite of that. So you have to put a trap here to specifically identify the lines you do not want to capture. In this case, I'm just going to make it simple. I'm going to use a standard trap. I'm going to use the letters media. And I could probably just get away with the letter M, I believe, as well. But just to make sure, like maybe we don't get a media type called mag or something like that. But right away, you'll notice instead of getting the 2 greater than symbols in our line selection window, we get this little X right here, which tells Monarch do not use this line to capture anything. And we also get this like bright red color to tell you this line is being excluded from being captured. All right. So again, we see in our data preview, I no longer have that MEDI line item, and you won't see it anywhere in here. If I scroll through the report, you'll see that anytime I see these letters in these columns, that it will throw out the that individual line. All right. And you can have, again, if you're capturing other data, you could easily exclude stuff. Now, again, you'll notice like I am capturing a count number here. If I were to say for whatever reason exclude that, I'm just going to get rid of it real quick. But if I exclude anything with the account number, you'll notice that I pretty much got rid of everything else. So because it's not allowing me to, basically makes this line invisible to Monarch. So even though I have a template up here that looks for account number, because I have an exclusion template, it pretty much throws out all the lines that start with ACC. I'm never going to be able to match on that. So just be careful of that as well. So once you use an exclusion template, it will literally exclude that line from being viewed by Monarch. All right. That, again, you got multiple exclusions, which brings us to our last 2 template types. They kind of go hand in hand. It's our start and end regions. And these are great for files that might have multiple report types in there, or if you want to kind of narrow down what you're looking for. Just get rid of this exclusion here. I'm just going to kind of roll back my stuff here just to make it look a little better. Say I wasn't in, maybe I didn't care about any of this information. All I really wanted to do was to see kind of like this information in here. Like I didn't really care about the customer information, the contact information. I have the ability of telling Monarch when to start looking for data and when to stop looking for data. And now in this case, like if I didn't care anything about up here, I could tell Monarch to only start looking for data once I see a column header, like in this case, media. And you do that with the start and end regions. Again, you can only have one of these at a time, like one pair. If like basically you can only have one start region and one end region. You don't have to use both, but you can't have multiple starts and multiple ends. But I'm going to say start region, and I put in the word media. And when I do that, you don't get the red big red lines, but essentially what I'm telling Monarch here at this point is don't start looking for data to capture until I come across this trap, in this case, media. And you see that with our line selection window. You see these X's, and you kind of see the report has been grayed out. Monarch is no longer looking at the report for any of this template information. So you'll see, well, at least right now, for the first beginning here, our account number and our contact name is blank because it was in our up here where we said don't start looking until we come across the header. Now with the start region, it's going to turn off Monarch from looking at anything until it finds it. Now once it finds it, Monarch's now freely available to look for data, and it'll keep looking for it until we shut it off. Now in this case, you'll notice as I scroll through, I no longer see these X's down here in the line selection. That's because once it's turned on, it's on. The only way to turn it off is to specifically say, hey, stop looking. Now in this case, I might say, again, I was pretty much only interested in this bit right here. So I'm gonna actually stop looking if I come across a date here in this column. Again, it's gonna screw up other templates here, but I'm gonna say create, and you'll notice my start region is gone. Because I can only have one. I'm gonna go end region. And again, I'm gonna kind of use the same one I use for my page header, but do like a number slash. And now if I scroll a little bit, you'll notice, and this is like the weird behavior, when you do these start and end regions, it doesn't include the lines that you're doing the trap on. So like our start region said start once you see media. So you'll notice X's, once we hit the media, it's now available to capture. Same thing with the end region. It'll stop capturing. Once it sees this, it knows this line you can still capture. So right here you can see I still have this line available for capture, but after that line, it turns off. And it stays off until it comes across the word media. So basically, essentially all I've done at this point was just gray out all the page header information at the top. So, all right. So that's what and again, real quickly, let me just show you. We no longer have a end region available to us. So again, you can only have one each of those. Generally use them in pairs. You don't have to. Again, a lot of times you see that with files that have multiple report types in there, and maybe you don't want to necessarily start capturing until you get to the very end of the report, so you can use an end region, or all the information you're looking at is available at the top. When the new report type comes on, you can just do an end region. Once you do that end region, like let me just turn this, get rid of the start region here. Notice, where is it? Actually, I think I just broke it. Because I have an end region without a start region, it didn't capture anything. So pretty much made the whole report invisible to Monarch to capture. So. All right. Any questions we can talk about? Let's see.
So there's two that came in.
Yep.
I don't know which you want to tackle first.
Yeah, it looks like we kind of answered them, but it's just
we answered them kind of like I did it publicly, but I don't know if you want to just kind of show it.
Let me just see what it says here. Use data prep change groups, and then we can talk about, is there a way to copy column format you set to the next column, aging columns? Yeah, I can probably show some of that. Let me just quickly run through my report verify real quick here. And anytime you're building templates, always run report verify just to make sure. All right, so someone asked about a way to copy a column format on another column. So one way you could do this, I'm trying to think of a good one to find on. Well, formats are formats. So for instance, I think they were talking about numbers, but this works for the same. Let me just fill this in here real quick. Like if I want to make everything uppercase, so for instance, like our media type here is in uppercase, our labels in uppercase. I'm going to just make this column uppercase as well. Case, make upper. So you'll notice I have my change over here. I made it uppercase. And I have one more column here. I can apply that same format. Now, again, I could do the same format again by using the drop-down arrow, going to case, make uppercase, or the easy thing to do is I can take we have a change over here. I can actually take this change, left click and hold it and drag it onto, in this case, it has to be a text column because you'll see the only ones that are not grayed out are text ones, and let go of it. So it applies whatever change here, which in this case is change this column to uppercase, and let it go. It'll make that column all uppercase. I do have another text column over here, which was our order number. But again, it's all numbers, so it wouldn't make a difference. And you can kind of do the same thing with the numbers. So like for our amount, if we were formatting it, so we make it current, or if we even do a custom amount, say like, let's see if I can do it like this. I don't want to do it like that. Not like that. And I want to apply that format over to like my quantity. I can do the same thing, just drag and drop it, and it'll apply that same format to this one, even though this one doesn't make sense because it actually is whole numbers and not dollar amounts. But just goes to show you that you can use this drag and drop feature to apply the same change to multiple columns. Now, I believe you could do, let me just double check here. I believe you can right click. Yeah, so you can right click and format multiple columns at the same time. However, you can't drag and drop this onto multiple columns. So it's only a drag and drop onto an individual column. Okay. So hopefully that answered the question.
There's another one where you're kind of talking with the changes there, Chris, that you can answer. It says, can you reorder the changes?
Oh, definitely. Yep. So that one actually can come helpful too, depending on what you do. So in this case, nothing earth-shattering here, but you can easily reorder the changes you do. In this case, if I didn't want to change this uppercase until higher up, I simply grab a hold of the column and just put it in the position. As I move it, I'm left-clicking, holding my mouse. You can see that little black line. It's going to show you where that change would get dropped at. And a lot of times this is pretty useful to have. So for in case you accidentally delete a column, I'm trying to think of a good example here. But you can, if you delete a change and it actually has a negative impact on what you're doing, or it doesn't apply to a column that doesn't exist yet, you can drag that change before to make sure that column is there. Hope that answers that question. Now, keep in mind, anytime you're dealing with a change list, and this is where it comes important, like if you undo it, all these changes, like change 5 depends on change 4, which depends on 3, 2, and 1, even though they may not have anything to do with each other. So like changing this column to uppercase and formatting this column, even though they don't have anything to do with each other, if I undo that one change, it's going to do all the changes above it because change 3 depended on change 2. Even though it had nothing to do with it, logically, the way data prep works, it did depend on it. But I don't think it'll let me do that. No, it won't let me grab it here. But same thing is like I can't just turn on like change 3 without turning on change 2 because change 3 depended on change 2. Now, if there's a reason, like I can't just say, come here and, well, I can, but it used to be like you can't just delete a change without really affecting anything. Like I can't just turn it off. But you do have the ability to actually, if I no longer need it, I can either move it to the top or just leave it where it's at, I can actually delete the change. And as long as it doesn't break anything, so for instance, say I was doing a merge, probably the best way of showing this real quick, I merge these two columns. We'll just put a space in there. If I were to delete a column now, let's see, where is it? Which one should I merge? Here we go. I'm just going to delete this column. Now, again, that doesn't really affect my merge, but say, for instance, that if I move that change down, or I delete the column down here to the beginning, notice it's going to invalidate, one, it's going to invalidate this one, but also broke the merge because of, like in this case, this one actually, where I did the change to uppercase, this column depended on that column to be there. I deleted it way down here. So this would be a good example. Like I can actually take this change that's been invalidated. If I hover over that exclamation mark, basically can't find the column. I can actually take this column, drag it down below where I deleted it, and now it works fine. Now again, this one breaks just because, again, same reason, I deleted the column already. But this gives you that flexibility to make the change. So yes, you can change the order that the changes happen in. And with that, I know Rebecca needed a few extra minutes today, so I'm going to hand it back over to you.